my camera's ready? All right, super. First of all, I want to thank all of you for attending this session. This is one of 3 sessions that we've been performing and doing throughout the community to try to get our message out, and really to hear from you folks as residents of the town of Foxborough on how you feel and what you know about emergency management and how we can actually take care of ourselves. I also want to thank Foxborough Cable. They're going to be recording this and then broadcasting it to the rest of the residents that were not able to make any of the 3 sessions, so that we really are doing everything in our power to reach out to the community and to all of our folks that look towards us to help them. And as I'm going to be telling you today, we're also looking for you to help yourself. And that's going to be the message that we're going to get out here. It's about emergency management and how you folks can take some steps that will make it a little easier for you, but also to help with the communication aspect of what's going on when we do have a crisis hitting our community. And for those that, I think I know everybody here, Roger Hatfield, I'm your fire chief, along with being the emergency management director here in the town of Foxborough. And I come from the great city of Nashua, and where I was the emergency management director for 9 years there for that city, and I was the fire chief. So I've got quite a bit of years of experience in how to take care of our communities and take care of our residents and making sure that we are prepared to handle those types of crises that might hit our community and might impact you folks. Now, I think the biggest thing that I need to really stress out there to all of you is that we are a bedroom community. Did you guys all know that? You guys know that? A lot of folks in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts think that Foxborough's a city. And it's all because we have this big thing called the stadium. But truly, Foxborough is a bedroom community, and we have minimal, limited resources. And most of our department heads, a few of them are here, and some that you know, like Chief O'Leary, and our new department, Public Works Director, Roger Hill, and your town manager, and your Board of Selectmen. We all wear multiple hats. We wear multiple hats because we are a bedroom community. And so it's very, very important that we all communicate and that we work together. And that we sit down every so often and say, what if? What if we have a power outage? Not once, but twice in 8 weeks. What if we have absolutely no power for a week? What if it happens to be in the middle of the summertime and I've got a lot of food in my house and I have respiratory problems? What if it's in the middle of the winter and I have no real place to go and it's getting cold out? These are the type of things that we as department heads, when we're talking about crises and emergencies that face our community, that what if it happens, what are we going to do?
Freeze.
We're going to freeze. No, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to reach out. One of the things that makes Foxborough so special is that we all reach out. If you recall those, and some of you folks probably were displaced and moved into our shelter during that Halloween snowstorm, or you might have been impacted by the power outage prior to that, is we as a community reach out. We as a community gather our volunteers, gather our support staff, and we help each other. You remember we did things like Neighbors Check on Neighbors? We got the message out to try to tell everybody what was going on in the community. That's one of the things that we found that we were weak in. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more in a little bit. But the biggest thing that I find is an asset to the town of Foxborough is our volunteers. We have a citizens corps that has been designed and developed to try to get our volunteers together, get them organized, get them trained, and have them be a resource to both the police and fire departments and the community as a whole. The other things that we look at is that we make sure our resources are available. Prior to the storm, we had 2 generators, 2 portable generators. Now, because of that storm, we said, hey, we got a little bit of a problem. We've got some people we can't move out of their homes that have life support systems that it's impossible for us to move them, so we need to bring them power. We went out and we purchased 5 more, so now we have 7 generators. Is that still enough? No. But it's still something that we are building off of, and we're trying to find out what other concerns we had. Prior to the 2 power outages, we had big, big floods. How many people know, friends or families or yourselves, that the cellars flood out? We went out and got some extra generators, pumps, both electrical ones and also ones that were gas-powered pumps to help get that water out of our residents' homes. Also to help us relocate water from flooded areas. We continually try to use the resources that we have to build and beef up our resources and the things that we need. Now, the other thing that we always reach out to is we look at state and federal grants. As you heard me say before, I wanted everybody to sign in. Because what we're doing is we're showing the state of Massachusetts, MEMA, Emergency Management, and we're showing the federal government, FEMA, that we are taking a proactive stance, that we're working towards making our community safer. And by showing documentations, and we'll give them copies of this disc that shows that we broadcasted it through our community, we're reaching out and showing that we need their assistance, that we are doing everything in our power as a bedroom community to protect our community. And I cannot say enough about Vicki and Pauline that have already, in the short period of time that I've been here, received grants to help us out in emergency management. And some of the stuff that you see up here is because of their work. And we also have Pat Galvin here that is now also one of our consultants that's working for emergency management with Vicki to help us get information. And we'll talk about that. That's where I'm actually leading to next. Information is everything. If you look back at all of the major impacts that we have been faced as the United States, as New England, and as Massachusetts, you always get a little edgy and a little nervous when you start hearing the media talk about it. Because the media starts pointing out all of these disasters, and it makes you do what?
Yeah.
It makes you think, and it starts to gets you all worked up. And what happens is
take action.
Some people take action that's good, and then there's some people that take action that's bad. I'll give you an example. After the World Trade Centers were attacked, and we had all the attacks in the United States, people got so scared they were stockpiling food, water, guns, plastic, duct tape. They were going to seclude themselves in their home from any attacks that could potentially happen. Doesn't that sound a little too extreme? Because here's what happens. When you get yourself into that type of mentality, that type of mode, that food is going to go bad. And then people eat it, and then they get sick. One of the things that we have found is that within 72 hours of any type of crisis, we're going to get some resources from either the state or from the federal government to come and support the town of Foxborough. So what we do is we try to make sure that we are building our resources to accommodate our needs for 72 hours. 72 hours. And we need to get that message out to you folks, because what we're going to be talking about is how can you help yourselves. We're basically going to say to you and to the community, you need to be able to help yourselves for the first 72 hours. Now, does that mean it's always going to work? No. We have the ability to come and assist anybody immediately if needed. But in the bigger plan, when looking at weather-related emergencies, looking at any type of chaos that could potentially happen in your community where you need to just tell people to shelter in place, you need to be ready for 72 hours worth of taking care of yourself. And that's what a lot of the literature that we are going to pass out today is going to talk about. But again, it goes back to the biggest piece that we had found during those 2 power outages. Communications. How are we going to communicate the message? How are we going to get the message out to everybody? Now, when we got hit with those 2 power outages, we were having meetings, we were building handouts, we were using, we couldn't use cable because we had no power, right? We were starting to use reverse 911 that we get from the Norfolk County Sheriffs and and Chief O'Leary through the police department. We're also using the reverse 911 through the school district that hits about 80% of our community or anybody that has kids in the school. But what's the problem?
No phone.
The phones, 90% if not higher of our phones don't work because they depend on power unless you have one of those old rotary phones.
No, I have an old one that's still stuck into the regular.
And that's a good thing. It still
The
works.
only one that works. Well, during that time.
So one of the things that we're going to ask all of you to do, and this also plays a little bit of what Pat's going to be talking about, is getting some critical information from you, is that we're going to, if you haven't already registered for the reverse 911, we're going to encourage you to do that. And, excuse me, when you do that, don't just put your home number, put your cell phone. Put your relatives that might not even live in the area's cell phone in home phones. Put your neighbors' phones in there. It doesn't matter how many phone numbers you put into the system, all of them are going to get notified. So that way, one way or another, somebody's going to know that they need to check up on you. Or at least then you have the information. It goes back to neighbors checking on neighbors. Perfect example, we had the last session, one of the young ladies was hurt, had to be sent to the hospital, but they couldn't figure out how to get in contact with her family that lived in Vermont. They used Facebook. Before she even was admitted into the hospital, her kids already knew through Facebook. So what's that other thing that we're using? We're using the phone system with reverse 911, but we're also, with Foxborough Cable, is using Facebook and Twitter, using all these high-tech gizmos to get the word out. What are the other things that we're doing? How many of you folks have picked up your magnet here at the Senior Center, at the Public Safety Building, or at Town Hall? We have an AM radio station. Doesn't this sound familiar for like civil defense? We're going back to radios. We're telling you to have a radio, a portable radio with batteries. We're working with this AM channel, and we're also reaching out with the school district and Bill Caspera to get an FM radio station on board. So it doesn't matter if you're going AM or FM, we'll be able to get messages out through the radio system. The other things that we're working on, and we're still going to do, is we're going to get the message out through the Common, on the boards. We're also going to still have our handouts that we had at the Senior Center, we had at Town Hall, we had at the Public Safety Building. We're also going to use our volunteers like we did last time, like the Boy Scouts, getting the word out there and checking on folks, as long as we can do it safely. And remember, we had a lot of power lines down. We have to make sure that the areas that we're sending our volunteers to are safe. But we're doing everything in our power to get the message out. Why is that important? Because if you've got the right information, you will not have to be scared. You won't have to start letting your mind think of all the bad things that are happening, and that information will allow you to make the right decisions. Because here's the thing. Some of you are going to say, I'm pretty comfortable in my house. I'm pretty comfortable where I'm located. Why should I leave? Why, you know? And has that crossed anybody's mind before?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't like to be relocated. And so by us getting the information out to you, you can know what's going on, you can make some right decisions for yourself, but at the same token, we're going to get into a little bit deeper of if you have critical needs, we'll be able to assist you even faster with the stuff that Pat's working on. But the important thing is that we need to get the message out to you guys so you can make the right decision, know when to break out your emergency shelter supplies, and basically know that what's going on in the town and what's impacting you. Now, the other thing that we also have to look at is that there's a lot of resources that are here in this packages that both Pauline's staff and Vicki and those folks did have points of contact information in here. So that if you still have a cell phone or you have an ability to communicate through phone lines, that's there. All the other things I just talked about in regards to reverse 911 and all that is in that package. These packages, though, need to be filled out by you. You have to look at some things that you need to plug in there And this is for your use. These packages are for you to get yourself ready and to trigger some thoughts of things that you need to line up and prepare for so that you can take care of yourself for the 72 hours. And yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
If we give our cell phone numbers, how are those numbers guarded? I think the best thing about a cell phone is you don't get all these people calling you.
Right. Your information is going into the Norfolk County Sheriff's. It's the police department. It's not being sold. Your data is not being sold to anybody.
I just don't want calls.
Absolutely. I don't want any calls either. So absolutely, your information is safe with the police department, and it's only used for emergency reasons only. If there's an emergency that Chief O'Leary or myself feel is important for you folks to know about, messages will be put out on that. When we had those 2 power outages, we were doing a message a day. A message a day. But we found...
When it came back on, I got all the messages.
Yeah. There was still a lot of people that weren't getting reached because, again, when everything was dependent on power. But, you know, that's just part of the thing. One question that was brought up at the last session that I'll bring up here before I bring Pauline up is about generators. About generators. We encourage folks to consider that if that's something that you feel you would like to have in your home. 3 things. First thing is always make sure that it's being installed by a certified electrician that knows what they're doing. Because we have a handout here that's from Bill Caspero, our building commissioner, telling you folks about some of the things that happen if they're not installed by a certified person. It could be stuff like backfeeding the power line so that when National Grid and the folks that are out there trying to repair the damage, they can get zapped or they can get electrocuted. The other thing is if it's not properly installed, the carbon monoxide could actually impact you, and that everybody knows what carbon monoxide does to you. It will make you very, very sick, and it could also kill you. So it's all of these things, and we have a handout here that please grab one if you're even considering that. And you know, that's not a bad thing. A lot of people are going that route, but you just got to be safe. You got to make sure that you do it right. I've yacked for a long time. Is there any questions so far before I bring Pauline up?
And the question is about generators. Do the housing, the public housing for seniors in the town have generators?
No.
They should, because you have them all seniors.
Right.
A lot with health problems.
Right.
A lot that are on oxygen and everything that depend on it. So I would suggest that if you're going to request more generators, as you say you probably will, that they consider.
I'm really, really happy you brought that up.
I hope you are.
Because the fixed generators that you're talking about, we would never use the small portable generators that we've been buying to try to take care of a whole facility, a whole little, town in a sense. Both of our 2 senior housing projects, we have been in contact with the state and the federal government looking for grants to get them the type of generators necessary. Then we also have the next piece is that we have discussed it as a community. We're trying that route first to get state and federal grants. And then if we're denied, then we're going to be looking at what the town needs to do to get them fixed. That has been a discussion since last year and is still one of our #1
Well, you
priorities.
set one down last year, but
But
then
that
you
wasn't-
said you needed 2.
Right.
So we never did get any help from it.
Right. The big one that you had there was being donated by a private business, and we just weren't able to have enough power there. We need very large generators, fixed generators. We're looking for a fixed generator for here. They're not cheap. First of all, they need to be engineered for the facility to make sure that it's the right size generator for the amount of wattage that needs to go in there. And it has to be installed appropriately and in a safe environment. They're very large. If you ever want to see how big we're talking, in the back of the public safety building, we have one of those that we use for the public safety building. Very large. But it is a #1 priority of ours.
I do know that in the public housing, they do have, like when the light power is out, for a certain period of time, maybe 30 minutes or something to that effect, that lights will come on in the hall.
Yeah.
But that's only to give you time to take other action. It doesn't mean that it's, I lived through that, so I
Right.
thought I was safe. All I had to do was open the door of the hall.
I
and
came
light
home,
up.
came home in pitch black one night, not from those storms, another storm.
Right.
And
Those are
I'm
your
crawling
emergency
up
lights.
the stairs,
Yeah.
trying to find my way.
Right.
Couldn't
So
find the
what
key.
do those run on? Do they run on some kind of an automatic?
Those are on
timer?
batteries. If you look at the wall, they have a box underneath the lights. It's a giant battery. And that battery will last for 2 to 4 hours. And it will just light up that. It's emergency lighting only. It would not give you power in your outlets.
Alright.
It's only to give light into the hallways to get you out.
I don't think they stay on that long.
Mine didn't come on last time.
All right, so you might want to talk to the maintenance folks to check the batteries. But that's what that
I don't think
is.
they stay on.
Here is another thing. Now that we have lead light lamps,
Mm-hmm.
they really don't cost that much. One of my daughters made me a survival kit. She not only gave me a television, but if I know there's a storm, I can charge it and I can get some TV stations. She gave me a lead light lamp. She gave me one of those things that you light a candle with,
Yeah.
to light your grill with.
Mm-hmm.
So she made up a survival kit for me. But they now have lead light magnets you can put on the wall. They also have these lights that you can install on the wall that run on a battery or something, that you can just pull the chain and get a light. So all of those little things that are now currently available, if you get the funding to provide them.
I didn't pay her to bring that up. But actually, the biggest thing that Pauline's going to bring out is that there is an actual breakdown of all the things that you should have in an emergency kit
Oh, good.
in this package. So
I know.
absolutely, everything that you bring up, we have not gotten any state aid or any federal aid to get these kits built. There was one, when we had the flooding, we had a mold issue. Remember when we had all that heavy rain about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago? We had a church that did about, how many, 50? 70 kits to help people clean after that to try to remove the mold. So we're always looking for partnerships, state aid through MEMA, and also federal aid through FEMA to get these kits. But in this package, and with that, Pauline's going to talk about the package. It has a list of those things that you should build your kit, your emergency kit with.
Thanks, Roger. I'm in a coalition. I'm with the Board of Health, in case you don't know. My name is Pauline Clifford. I am in a coalition with 24 other towns. It's called the Bristol-Norfolk County Coalition. We work on emergency preparedness all the time for our EDS sites, which is an emergency dispensing site. We received this template from the state. We put it together in conjunction with some of the good people here in town, the chief, Vicki, Lauren Batar, my staff, Debbie Jarvis. Got some really great input from a lot of people in regards to this to make it our own. And in the book, it talks exactly about the 72-hour kit, what you should do. I think it's on page 7. This is in draft form right now. I'm working with the public schools, the high school on this, with Debbie Spinelli. They're going to take this and we're going to shorten it up and tweak it up a little bit more, put some pretty pictures in it, and then hopefully distribute it out to whoever would like it. I'm going to have it up here available at the COA, at the town library. But in this, it talks about generators, it talks about fire extinguishers, but basically it talks about planning for disaster. Again, how to help yourself. So you really want to pay attention to the first page and fill out all the information, because if you are without power and you say you're down and out on the floor, somebody comes in, if this is hanging in your kitchen, they can see all your emergency contacts. They don't have to go to your computer or your cell phone. It's kind of like going back to the old days. All your key information is here, your doctors, your anything, your nearest relatives. So this is really important to have. And again, the whole thing today is about helping yourself. Be informed, have a plan, have a ready-to-go kit, and ready at home. We do have these shorter versions of a quick emergency supply kit that you should have. Maybe put one in your car, maybe put one where you work. That way it's kind of a grab and go thing, just in case something happened. It's called a ready-to-go kit. So we have these available. We have a lot of different brochures here. This is even one for your pets. You should have a ready-to-go kit for your pet if you have any kind of...
And let me jump in, because Sue would be upset, our animal control officer would be very upset if I didn't talk about this. When we decided to open up our shelter last Halloween, it was kind of against what has been pushed in Massachusetts is regionalization. And when you look at the regionalized plan for this area, our shelters would be in Attleboro. Well, when we made the decision, and it wasn't just myself, it was everybody that is part of the, the town, being the town manager, the selectmen, department heads, and we had made a determination that we needed to relocate some critical residents, being our seniors. We knew darn well that our seniors weren't going to want to go, first of all, and they really aren't going to want to leave their own community. So we made a determination that we were going to open up our own shelter. And with that, how many of you folks have a loved one being a four-legged loved one?
I have a two-legged one.
We have a lot of folks with animals that are just as much part of their family as anything. And so we had called Sue and said, Sue, we're going to have some animals. And we actually built a shelter inside our shelter, but not with the folks, so that if anybody was allergic to cat hair or dog hair would be impacted. But it was our shelter had a component of it that allowed you to bring your animals. And Sue did an outstanding job. And since then, she got some federal grant, state grant money to buy some more crates, so that we're even more prepared the next time if we need to relocate people. And that's something that when looking at normal shelters, Red Cross is not supportive to having an animal shelter inside their normal shelter. We made accommodations so that we could do it safely.
That's what I was wondering about the animals.
Yep.
If we had to go.
If you ever get relocated, I'm committing to you that Sue, I didn't like that, she's not even here. Sue and I and the rest of the community will make sure that your animals are safe and that they are located in the shelter in a different location. Mm-hmm. You can go visit, mm-hmm. and you can go for walks, but they'll be in that same structure.
And again, on top of that, you want to make sure you not only have your kit, but their kit. You're going to take your medicine with you to the shelter. You want to make sure you take your dog's medicine if they have special food or whatever they need to, just like you would for an infant. So that's about it for me. With that, I'll let Vicki start speaking.
Okay. Well, since I know 99.9% of you, I'll just tell you I'm Vicki Lowe. I'm the Director of Council on Aging and Human Services. I think when people think of Council on Aging and the Senior Center, they think of all the wonderful activities and programs that we offer here in this building. But we're also human services, so that we provide for the needs for anybody of any age in the community who call us and say, I need help with this or that. About 70% of our human service clients are seniors, but there are families in the community that we help and other people. So since I started here 11 and a half years ago, and we've had a social service department, we have kept at-risk lists of our clients. So if we have someone that has come to us that we know of, that we would want to just be sure that we checked on in the event of an emergency, we kept those lists. Well, as Roger said, when we had the storms and the power outages for a whole week, one right after another, we realized that all the emergency planning we had done was good, but there was a lot more that was needed. And every day after we completed our tasks at the shelter or wherever, we had a meeting where we all got together and talked about different issues and how we would solve that problem. And then we had something that was called an after-action report. My after-action report said that we really needed to have a concentrated effort of finding people in the community that we didn't know about. I mean, we worked on evacuating senior housing, we knew of some people in the community, but there are a lot of people that live in individual homes in the community that if they weren't our client, we didn't know about them and we didn't know that they might need some help. Some of the issues that came up that we didn't really prepare for until it happened was if you have Lifeline, so you have identified yourself as a person who would need to be checked on or that needs to press a button because you might be at risk of a fall, your battery died within 36 hours. So automatically, since this emergency, all of our clients who are on Lifeline will be called after 36 hours to be sure that they're okay. Even though our emergency management and our planning is for 72 hours, people with Lifeline we're going to be trying to get in touch with. But we don't know everyone on Lifeline. So we needed to really work on trying to figure out how to reach out to people in the community to find those people with the most critical needs who would need to be kind of prioritized as people that would be checked on in the community. So Chief Hatfield and our department worked on trying to dovetail our databases to be sure, because as he pointed out, we don't have a generator. So what would happen when there's a snowstorm or something, our staff, we would print out lists, bring them home, call people, be sure they were okay. Well, when it's a week-long emergency, you really do need to have access to your computer information. So we've worked on combining our lists. And so one of the things that I did is I wrote for a grant through the state and was awarded a grant to be able to hire somebody to help us get the word out to people. Now that's Pat Gavin. She's our emergency management outreach worker. And she's done a lot of work that she'll talk about as far as what she's done to try to get the word out. And it's not just, you know, because you're 70 should you be called. It's for people with the most critical needs. Now, I went to some meetings with National Grid, and there was a woman who stood up and said, you know, that she had a daughter who was on a respirator and that she didn't have any power. And I know that she ended up calling public safety. Chief Hatfield went out, but we had no way of knowing about that person who's a young person. So we really wanted to have the whole community be aware that we are really trying to get your information and get it into our database. However, as you all know, when you make a list, I can make a list today and say, you know, I've got this person on it, and then tomorrow there might be someone else I should have added, or someone I should have taken off because they've moved. So if you or a loved one is on our list and anything changes, we just ask you if you can please contact us so that we will be kept abreast of changes so that we're not using public safety personnel to go check on someone who's moved or someone who doesn't need to be checked on. So we just ask if you can, you know, if you do get on the list to try to keep us up to date of what's going on. Now we're going to have a system in place where we routinely call people, but we could call you this week and next week something changes dramatically. So we really are reaching out to all of you to let us know too. Now, I want to answer some of the things you asked about housing. When the housing, you know, when we met with Pat Annis from the Housing Authority after the storm, she was included in some of our after-action meetings, and I know that the housing is federally and state funded. It's not town funded. She reached out to people, and what they did in the Housing Authority was they put a generator in her office. So it would be a place, because I guess there's a little community room there, so that people who live in housing, who need to just go in, plug in their cell phones, warm up, chat with other people, they did put a generator in the office. Because of the way the buildings are set up, I think it's a little bit of a nightmare trying to get the generators to, you know, for each building, but that's something that Pat had said that she would work on, trying to look for some grant funding for that. Because when you have emergency lights that go on when the power goes off, and you think, oh, it's New England, it's a power outage, I'll be fine, and then 4 days later, you know, I mean, I was one of the people who went and helped evacuate people, and the pitch black stairwells were horrible. They were so dangerous, and it's not something that 20 or 30 minutes that you're going to make a decision that you're going to leave. You know, it's after we're New Englanders. You know, we've stuck it out through worse. So it's like sometimes when you're making those decisions, it's 2 or 3 days later. So I know that Pat had said that she was going to work on addressing some of that. Some of those things are with the federal and state housing.
Now, one other thing that you talk about, you know, people who are not like seniors and but other people who may need help. What about the families who are assisted, you know, single family mothers with children that are in public housing, subsidized housing for the town? Is there a methodology of contacting those families?
That's what these meetings are about. We had a meeting at the high school, we had a meeting at the public safety building, and now we've had a meeting here. For the general public, and now we're trying to get it on cable too, because we want everyone to know that we're working on this, but we need people to come to us. Pat's going to talk about how she found people, but I need to emphasize that anyone who wants to be on this, it's their choice. We don't put people on the list, they put themselves on it. So,
Is this a different list than the other list that they were talking about?
Yeah, because families, these are families.
this would be anyone with critical needs that would be, that would want to be on the public safety database, but it's someone with critical needs. One of the things that was mentioned too, you know, we have routinely, we do public safety things, we have triad meetings every month. Well, one of the things that we did is we had the person from Triad come here. I mean, the person from the Norfolk County Sheriff's Office come to a Triad meeting and tell people how to register their reverse 911 to get onto that list. So we made up a little brochure. So these are over here too, along with the intake forms that Pat's going to talk about now. Does anyone have any other questions for me?
Before Pat jumps in, I just want to make a little clarification. What Pat's working on is people with critical needs. That is different than the reverse 911. That's a blanket notification system. What we're working here on are those folks that are in hospice, those that have life support systems at their home that are going to need special care, special needs, and that's what Pat's been really working, is going out and finding those groups. So.
And I'm really sorry if I confused that issue. I think I may have done that at another meeting too. We want everyone to have reverse 911, and we did find the problems with the landlines that were dead and that people didn't have their cell phones registered, so there was a whole segment of the community that didn't get it. The emergency intakes are for people with the critical needs.
Now, I have Lifeline, and my Lifeline is connected to a phone, a regular phone jack. Yeah. But also, I think it's part of it is connected to an outlet, which means power. So I don't know.
What happens with your Lifeline is the power goes out, there's a built-in battery, and it's not something that you can just go to CVS and get replacement batteries. It's a thing that's inside the machine. It's a battery that will last for 36 hours. That's it.
The time limit.
That's the time limit. So we should have your name if we don't.
Vicki, I just want to say something.
Yeah.
You made a good point about the people that don't live in the housing, that are living alone. Like I live where I live. I have been there over about 50 years, and only one time, one neighbor came to find out what was going on. That was the day my husband died. She saw our eyes. But in 50 years, I've never had a neighbor check on me, and not that I...
Well, that's the word we're hoping to get out with these meetings too, is that people need to be in a position where we're helping ourselves, we're helping each other, and checking on neighbors.
Well, I just want to say that when we had that storm, luckily Sharon came to the house and brought me over somewhere, and then we ended up at the station, and I said, there was a truck of ice, there were people having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I knew nothing about any of this. And I thought, oh, isn't this nice? But I would never know, because I'm way down.
But now with your reverse 911 being on your cell phone and on your daughter's phone, you're having her number on, there will be a message saying, if you need ice, go there at this time.
Otherwise, I never knew what was going on down there.
And that happened to a lot of people.
A lot of people. And again, the after-action report that Vicki brought up, that was the biggest message that we found. Even though we were reaching out, there was still a lot of flaws of getting that connection. We had lots of ways that we were getting out, and this is the biggest one, the reverse 911, getting everybody's phones into the system, That way we're doing a better outreach. Because we did get a lot of feedback after, people saying the same thing. When my phone power guy came back, I had all these messages on my answer machine. We heard that many people.
Thank God the people in the court told me to go up there for one.
Right. But we were really, really striving to get the word out. We had the Boy Scouts out there, God bless them all. We had, I think
They
we had
actually
Girl
went
Scouts.
door to door.
Yeah, they were going door to door. We had messages everywhere saying, neighbors check on neighbors, get the word out. And again, I apologize, but there was
Well,
hope.
what finally happened was later on that day, I ended up at the supper. They had the supper, and then they were saying the Boy Scouts would come and get your food, at your house. Well, I waited and waited and waited. 8 o'clock, I think it came 8 or 8:30, and I called Mike Johns, and he said, "Oh my God, I'll have one of my sons come down there." And they took it all, and I was so thankful.
All the spoiled
I was
food.
so thankful at
Right.
what they did for me.
Jerry, what did you want to say?
Because I don't understand the technology of anything. In bad storms, do the cell towers go out at all?
Usually not. They might get overwhelmed, but they usually don't go out. Most of our towers have backup generators, so we don't lose that connectivity. But I do want to throw out there a few things before Pat. I'm sorry, we're taking away from her time. Perfect things that you brought up. That summer storm. Some of the things health issues were our #1 priority during that summer storm. Because it was beautiful. If you guys remember, after it went through, the weather was beautiful.
Yeah.
But we had no power for well over 6 to 7 days in a lot of our areas of our community, and we were concerned about health. And that was where we knew darn well if people thought the food might be okay. So what was the slogan that Pauline and her gang came out with? If in doubt, throw it out. And that was a huge slogan that we were getting out to everybody. We had worked with the Board of Selectmen and our waste disposal to get out there and do a secondary extra pickup because we didn't want that spoiled food sitting out in that hot sun. These are the things that we talk about, that we try to reach out, and we're getting better at it.
But my point was, if Sharon didn't take me up at that station, I'd have never known what to
Right.
do.
Right.
And then, was it Chris Mitchell?
Hey,
Was
yep.
that his name?
Yep, Boy Scouts.
And they were telling me, they were telling everybody what to do, and I was so thankful. I didn't know what I was going to do with all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And that was a lot of the information that we were putting together and getting out the different resources to get the word out. And the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts were one of them. They were wonderful.
It was a real team effort.
Absolutely.
I mean, even though a lot of it we couldn't have prepared for the things that you don't know about until they happen, there was such tremendous support and people volunteering and everyone just trying to see how they could pitch in. I mean, it was a proud moment for Foxborough, I think. It's the silver lining in the awful storm.
Mansfield got a little low because we all went down there to eat.
And
they were packed.
That blizzard in the 80s, Chief Hatfield wasn't here then, but I remember my husband saying, do you remember it?
Was
In
it
the
78?
80s? And
78?
my husband saying,
78.
he took a sled,
It was 78.
Yeah.
and our youngest at the time, and they went, I think, up the Southwestern Community Club. Welch's Dairy was there, giving away milk. And my husband was saying, he says, it was wonderful. Everybody was out.
I can't thank Stop and Shop
Oh, yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Stop and Shop, and some of the area restaurants for the shelter, they donated prepared food. There were citizens that came in and made breakfast for everybody. There was Stop and Shop donated a ton of food in both storms. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's kind of like scary, but it's a nice sense of community and to know that.
Craft organization. In the craft organization.
Yep.
Yes,
Craft
they-
organization provided us all that ice.
Yep, and they hardwired some
Some
for the
food too, I
generator.
think.
Yep. So, I mean, we definitely pulled together as a community. And, I think that, well, again, we used the fire station, the McGinty room, to charge people's batteries, because we have that ability to do that. We also did it at Town Hall.
I just didn't have any oxygen for the whole week.
Well, but as we were also reaching out to everybody to tell them, if you have oxygen needs, you need to let us know. We have the ability to support. And that is, again, as Vicki said, probably the biggest golden lining that we have is we do reach out and help each other. I know that we're on the clock here with both the broadcast and Pat Galvin, our consultant, if we could.
Well, I don't have a lot to say, so you don't have to worry. We'll still finish on time. But I think you should be really proud of your community. You've heard all of the wonderful things that they were able to do during the storms. But also, I believe it's the only community, to my knowledge, that has an emergency preparedness outreach worker, because I Googled that position and it doesn't come up anywhere else. So you should be proud that the town cares that much about emergency preparedness that they got the grant for it. But I just want to briefly talk about this form that everyone has been mentioning. And this, we're looking, as you've been told, for the people who have critical needs. So you could be 95 and not have a critical need. That's certainly possible. And you could be a young person and have a critical need. So what we're looking for is people who really would need to be checked on pretty much within 12 to 24 hours of an emergency, maybe even sooner, because of that critical need. So definitely somebody who is on a respirator the town needs to know about that right away. Somebody who is on home dialysis, or somebody who needs to get out to dialysis, somebody who is on oxygen and is really very dependent on that oxygen. Chief Hatfield talked about air conditioners, which for many people that's a luxury, and you'd say, why should we be concerned about that? But if you have respiratory issues, that air conditioner may be very necessary for your effective breathing. So we want to know about people like that. We want to know about people. We want to know about people who may become very anxious during a storm, and so anxious that perhaps they're not able to function well in their home, and that's certainly, yourself, even if you have no anxiety issues, that you may become unduly concerned about things once we're in an emergency situation. So we really would like to know about people like that. So this form, if you would like to fill one out, you feel you should be on this list. At present, we have about 45 people in the database for this particular program. These people, as I say, would be contacted very quickly in an emergency. If you would like to fill one out, they're here. If you know of someone else, and that's what we're really looking for you to be ambassadors, because you may know someone in the community that I haven't reached. I've gone through all of the home care agencies that service this area, the hospices, those dialysis, oxygen supply companies. We've gone through churches and doctors and anybody that we could think of who might be able to tell us about somebody in the community with a need. But you may know people that we haven't reached. So if you do, please feel free to take one of the forms. It does have to be signed, and the Council on Aging privacy policy is on the back, and that kind of addresses the issue that came up over here about phone numbers and information. It's only going to be in the public safety database, and that is it. It's not going to be shared with anyone else, but we do like you to sign it so that we know you understand that that is true. So I just encourage you to think about your neighbors, think about people that you know in town who might be appropriate to be on this list. It's not that we want huge numbers, but we want the right numbers. We want the right people on the list. So anyway, thank you. Thank you.
Well, again, I can't thank Pat. That was excellent. I cannot thank these three ladies for all the hard work they've put into this. They make me look good because I get to sign this stuff, and they develop it all. So that's really, really good. But Vicki already said it. We are a very special community, and when we are in need, our community pulls together. That's what makes us extremely unique and very special. And there's so many people that I personally, as the Emergency Management Director, would love to thank, being all the department heads, the town manager, and the Board of Selectmen for their support. But really the biggest one is our volunteers. All of those folks that come out and help each other, neighbors that check on neighbors, people that get out there and make sure that we're taking care of the spoiled food, or just helping getting ice out of a big ice box and giving it to people. Our businesses that come through to help us all out. That's what really makes my job a lot easier, makes me feel real comfortable as your fire chief, but also as your emergency management director. And I can't, couldn't do it without everybody's support. Is there any other questions that are out there that you guys, it's like been really bugging you that you'd like to get out that you think that the community could get some information on? If not, up.
Well, I live in the building that used to be the state hospital.
Yeah.
And everything is electric.
Yeah.
So when to get into the building, you need a card. So it's kind of a problem. They have to, if somebody comes and props open a door, it's okay.
Right.
But you could be in trouble.
Right. We have a few facilities like that, and again, they usually work with their maintenance staff to get the doors open. If it's an emergency situation, I can guarantee you the fire department has big tools and big keys. We can get into anything.
I did get messages on my telephone.
Yeah.
Although I couldn't call out, but I did get messages.
Yeah, so at least you knew where to go to get some assistance, and you know what? You're in my backyard.
I can walk over.
You can walk over and see us. Come over and say hi.
Because I don't drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, I want to thank you very much. Vicki, I want to thank you, Pat, Pauline, and thank you, Foxborough Cable, for broadcasting this.
Thanks for coming, guys. I have one little caveat. Each emergency is individual, so not every. I mean, sometimes it's ice, sometimes it's the shelter. It'll just kind of depend. But that's it. Yeah. You may have said that. Yeah.
I don't believe that.